The smell of roasting meat drifted across the street long before the words hit my ear. "Everyone's already here." "Sarah," my sister-in-law Amanda said sweetly over the phone, her voice smooth in that fake, honey-dripping way that always meant she was smiling too wide. "We really can't accommodate more people tonight. Maybe next time." From my kitchen window, I could see the scene she was describing. Cars were stacked along the curb outside her home. My mother-in-law's shiny SUV, my other sister-in-law Kate's well-used minivan, and even a couple of sedans owned by cousins who lived hours away. Laughter carried over the wind along with the comforting fragrance of her Sunday roast, a taste of family that was never offered to me. "Of course," I replied evenly, forcing my voice to stay calm. "Have a nice dinner." When I hung up, the soft reflection of my 11-year-old daughter appeared beside me in the window. Sophia's green eyes searched my face, reading my mood as easily as she always did. "They're all gathering again, aren't they, Mom?" she asked quietly. I pulled her close, breathing in the faint, sweet scent of her strawberry-scented shampoo. "Yes, honey," I whispered. "But you know what? Maybe it's time we start our own tradition." Her eyes brightened a little. "Our own tradition? Like what?" I tapped her nose, a new idea already blossoming. We had started a small vegetable garden 3 months earlier, a school project that had grown into something more. Tomatoes so fat they barely stayed on the vine. Zucchini that made us laugh with how fast they appeared overnight. Basil that perfumed the air every time we brushed past it. "What if," I said slowly, "we have our own Sunday feast, made entirely from what we've grown ourselves?" Sophia's entire face lit up. "Really? Can we invite Ms. Rose?" "She always waves when I'm in the garden." Ms. Rose was our elderly neighbor who lived alone next door. She loved our garden as though it were her own, often leaning on the fence to give Sophia advice about watering schedules or pest-repelling tricks. "That's a wonderful idea," I said, already feeling lighter. "Go invite her while I start cooking." While she skipped out the door, I turned to the backyard and set to work. The sun was low, golden on the leaves. The tomato vines were heavy, bending gently under the weight of fruit that glistened with beads of dew. I gathered handfuls of basil and oregano, plucked the ripest tomatoes, and cut 2 firm zucchinis. The air smelled clean, fragrant, alive. Inside, the kitchen buzzed with the warmth of activity. I chopped vegetables rhythmically, my knife clicking softly against the board. Olive oil sizzled in a pan, filling the space with a mouth-watering aroma. It had been years since I'd cooked on a Sunday evening. The night had always belonged to Amanda's family dinners. Tom, my husband, was away again on another business trip. He was always away on Sundays. I knew it hurt him to see the growing coldness between his sisters and me, especially with Amanda. But he never knew which side to take, so he avoided choosing at all. I had long stopped expecting him to step in. The problem had begun 3 years earlier when Amanda started her Sunday dinners. At first, she'd invited us occasionally, but the invitations soon dried up with excuses that made less and less sense. "Oh, we thought you were busy." It was last minute, and then the excuses stopped completely, replaced by pointed silence. By then, I realized I wasn't merely overlooked. I was intentionally excluded. 1 hour later, just as the sky turned soft pink, Ms. Rose arrived with a warm smile and a tin pan in her hands. "I brought something sweet," she said shyly. "An apple pie. I was saving it for a special day." "You picked the perfect one," I told her. Sophia was at the counter, arranging plates and folding cloth napkins, while Ms. Rose taught her how to crease them into the shape of flowers. "My mother always said," Ms. Rose murmured, adjusting her glasses, "it isn't the fancy table that makes the meal. It's the love put into the food and the joy of sharing it." Sophia smiled proudly, placing her finished napkin on the table. "Mom, can we eat outside, like by the garden?" I paused, glancing from the small kitchen table to the glowing rows of tomatoes and herbs outside. "Actually," I said, "I have a better idea." Together, we carried the meal out into the garden. We spread a faded but beloved picnic blanket on the grass between the basil pots and the tomato vines. The plates looked mismatched in the soft light, but the food, the glossy tomatoes turned into rich sauce, the herb bread warm from the oven, the roasted vegetables glistening with oil, looked like something from a dream. When we finally sat down, The sun dipped lower, painting the sky with strokes of orange and rose. Giggles rose from Sophia as she twirled pasta on her fork. "This is like eating in a secret garden," she said. "It is," I replied softly, glancing toward the house across the street. Through Amanda's front window, silhouettes of people moved and laughed. Yet for the first time the sight didn't sting. It just didn't matter. Ms. Rose smiled knowingly. "Every good garden tells a story, my dear," she said. "And I think you and your mother are just beginning to write yours." We talked until the candles we'd set flickered out. The evening wrapped around us like a gentle blanket. I realized that what we had built that night was better than any formal dinner served on crystal platters. It was built on love, on growth, on something genuine, and that small spark changed everything. In the weeks that followed, our little garden dinners became the bright center of our week. Every Sunday morning, Sophia and I went out early to harvest whatever the earth offered: carrots and beans, herbs and squash, while birds sang nearby. By afternoon, we'd be in aprons, laughing, experimenting with new recipes, our kitchen once again filled with the scent of home. Ms. Rose became our constant guest, her presence like sunlight. She brought small gifts of seeds, gardening gloves, and most precious of all, her company. Sometimes, she would tell us stories about her late husband and the orchard they'd once tended together. Sophia adored those stories. Soon, word spread. Ms. Rose's granddaughter Emily, a college student home for the summer, began joining us, bringing freshly baked bread from the bakery where she worked part-time. Her laughter was contagious. It rolled through the garden like wind chimes. Not long after, the Martinez family 2 doors down appeared one Sunday, holding hands shyly at the gate. Their 8-year-old twins had seen Sophia gardening and wanted to learn. "We brought tortillas," their mother Maria said. "Maybe we can teach you to cook something from my village." That evening, Maria showed Sophia how to wrap zucchini blossoms in corn tortillas and fry them to golden crispness. "In my home," Maria said proudly, "food is how we show love. We don't need perfect silverware, only full hearts." By midsummer, our backyard had turned into a living patchwork of people. Kids darted between vegetable rows while adults passed dishes and stories alike. Laughter floated over the fence, and stray candlelight flickered off wine glasses and mason jars. Sometimes, as I stirred a pot of sauce, I'd glance across the street. Amanda's house still gleamed every Sunday, her guests lined up neatly like ornaments. But looking at her windows no longer carried bitterness. I felt something else, peace, because what we had was real. One Sunday evening, as the garden glowed beneath strings of tiny lights, an unexpected figure appeared. Tom. He had come home early from his trip without warning. He stopped at the gate, taking in the sight, children playing under the vines, Ms. Rose laughing beside Maria, Sophia explaining her new butterfly garden to Emily. He slipped an arm around my shoulders. "This is beautiful," he said quietly. "Why didn't you tell me?" I squeezed his hand. "I wanted you to see it for yourself," I replied. He helped Sophia that night, proudly carrying plates from the kitchen while she gave a full tour guide presentation of her little green kingdom. The pumpkin patch she'd started, the spiral herb bed she'd designed with Ms. Rose, and the new compost project that everyone contributed to. When twilight deepened into soft blue, Sophia stood up. "Next week," she announced proudly, "we're going to have a harvest celebration. Everyone's invited." And the following Sunday, our garden dinner transformed into something magical. Maria brought fairy lights that West rung between the tomato stakes. Emily arrived with a guitar, filling the evening with gentle music. Ms. Rose taught the children how to make flower crowns from garden blooms. The scent of grilling vegetables and fresh herbs mingled with the sound of multiple languages, English, Spanish in the universal language of laughter. Children darted between the garden rows, playing hide and seek, their giggles carrying across the neighborhood. I was setting out a fresh batch of herb-roasted potatoes when I noticed movement at Amanda's house. The usual Sunday dinner crowd was there, but something was different. The younger cousins were pressed against the windows again, watching our celebration. Even some of the adults seemed distracted, their eyes drawn to our twinkling lights and the sound of music. Mrs. Anderson, It was Tommy, one of the Martinez twins, holding up a massive zucchini. "Can we invite my friend Jack? He lives over there." He pointed directly at Amanda's house. I felt my heart skip. Jack was Amanda's youngest son. Before I could respond, we heard the sound of running feet. Jack had already spotted Tommy and was racing across the street, followed by his cousins. They stopped at our garden gate, uncertainty mixing with curiosity on their faces. Sophia, wearing her flower crown, walked over to them. "Want to see our pumpkin patch? We're going to have enough for Halloween." The children needed no further invitation. Soon they were exploring the garden, exclaiming over the growing pumpkins, asking Sophia endless questions about how things grew. I held my breath, waiting for Amanda to appear and demand her son's return. Instead, it was Kate who crossed the street carrying a homemade apple pie. It thought maybe she hesitated at the gate. The kids seemed to be having fun. Tom stepped forward, taking the pie from his sister. "There's always room for more at your table," he said quietly. "Even if the table is a picnic blanket." Kate's eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "We've been so wrong." I wanted to say many things in that moment about hurt and exclusion, about the pain of watching family gather without you. But looking at our garden, at this beautiful community we created out of that pain, I realized something important. Sometimes the best response to exclusion isn't to seek inclusion, but to create something new and wonderful of your own. "Would you like to join us?" I asked instead. "Sophie is about to show everyone how to harvest moonflowers. They only bloom at sunset." As Kate stepped into our garden sanctuary, I caught a glimpse of Amanda watching from her window. Her expression was complex. Surprise, confusion, perhaps even a touch of longing. But for the first time in 3 years, I didn't feel the sting of her rejection. Our garden feast continued into the evening, the fairy lights twinkling like stars among the vegetables. The children's laughter mixed with guitar music and conversations in multiple languages. It wasn't the formal family dinner Amanda had always insisted upon, but it was something perhaps more precious, a genuine celebration of community growth and the simple joy of sharing food grown with love. As I watched Sophia teaching Jack and his cousins how to tell when a tomato was perfectly ripe, I realized that sometimes the most beautiful traditions grow from unexpected seeds, and our garden feast was blooming into something far more meaningful than I could have imagined. But the real surprise was still to come, and it would arrive in a way none of us expected. The following week brought an unexpected autumn heat wave. As I tended the garden early Sunday morning, I noticed our tomato plants drooping despite the early hour. The forecast predicted record temperatures, and I worried about our planned garden dinner. Sophia came outside in her gardening overalls, her face concerned. "Mom, the plants look sad." "They're just hot, sweetheart. Maybe we should cancel dinner today. It's going to be too warm to eat outside." Before Sophia could respond, we heard a familiar voice. "Nonsense. You just need some shade." Ms. Rose stood at the garden gate holding a large rolled-up canvas. Behind her, Emily carried poles and rope. "My late husband was a sailor," Ms. Rose explained. "He taught me that a good canvas sail can create the perfect shade. We use this for beach picnics. Within an hour, our garden was transformed. The canvas created a beautiful canopy over our dining area, providing much-needed shade. The Martinez family arrived early to help set up more lights and bring extra chairs. Emily started setting up fans she borrowed from the bakery. Then something truly unexpected happened. Amanda appeared at our gate, looking uncomfortable, but determined. In her arms, she carried a large box. "I found these in the attic," she said hesitantly. "They were Mom's old electric fans. Vintage, but they still work. I thought maybe you could use them." Sophia, ever the diplomat, rushed forward onto Amanda. "Want to see how big the pumpkins got? We named one after you because it's so pretty." A flash of emotion crossed Amanda's face. Surprise, then something softer. She let Sophia lead her through the garden, listening as my daughter proudly explained each plant and flower. I watched them, remembering how things used to be before the Sunday dinner divide. Amanda and I had once been close, sharing dreams and secrets. What had changed? As if reading my thoughts, Amanda turned to me. "Sarah, I've been doing a lot of thinking, watching your garden dinners, seeing how everyone comes together here." It's Madame realized something. She paused, looking around at the community we built. Maria was setting up a table off food, her twins helping arrange dishes. Rose and Emily were stringing up more lights. Kate's children were playing with the Martinez kids among the plants. I thought I was preserving family tradition with my formal dinners, Amanda continued. But somewhere along the way, I forgot what those traditions were really about. It was never about perfect place settings or formal invitations. It was about bringing people together. I felt tears prick my eyes but remained silent, letting her continue. When Mom was alive, her dinners weren't formal at all. Remember, she'd let us eat in the backyard, tell us stories about her childhood garden. Everyone was welcome, her voice cracked. I tried so hard to keep the family together my way that I ended up tearing it apart instead. Before I could respond, Sophia came running back. Mom, the moonflowers are starting to open early because of the shade. Can we invite everyone to watch? Amanda looked at me questioningly. I took a deep breath. Everyone includes you, I said softly. That evening, our garden dinner became something magical. Under the canvas canopy, with vintage fans wearing and fairy lights twinkling, two families became one again. Amanda's formal dinner crowd merged with our garden community, creating a beautiful chaos of laughter, stories, and shared food. My mother-in-law, who have followed Amanda over, sat with Ms. Rose, exchanging gardening tips and family recipes. The children darted between adults, showing off Sophia's vegetable kingdom. Palm stood with his sisters, their heads close together, bridges being rebuilt through quiet conversation. As the sun set and the moonflowers began their nightly show, Amanda found me by the herb garden. I owe you an apology, she said. A big one, I shook my head. What matters is now. No, she insisted. I need to say this. I was jealous, Sarah. You always made everything look so effortless. Being a mom, having a career, even growing this amazing garden. My formal dinners were my way of trying to prove I could create something special, too. But look what you've built here. She gestured at the joyful gathering. This is what family really means. Sophia peered between us wearing a new flower crown. Aunt Manda. Want to learn how to make one? I use flowers from the garden. As I watched my sister-in-law let my daughter weave flowers into her perfectly styled hair, I realized that sometimes the best traditions aren't the ones we tried to preserve, but the ones we allow to grow naturally, like the plants in our garden. 1 year later, our Sunday tradition has evolved into something beautiful. We still host garden dinners, but now they rotate between houses. Amanda's formal dining room has been open to the garden, her perfect table settings relaxed, to accommodate children's art projects and gardening experiments. The Martinez family taught everyone to make tortillas. Ms. Rose shares stories of her sailing adventures, and the children have started a neighborhood gardening club. Every Sunday, as I watch our expanded family gather related by blood or choice, I think about how the very exclusion that once caused so much pain led to something wonderful. Our garden didn't just grow vegetables. It grew understanding, forgiveness, and a new kind of family tradition. Sophia puts it best, as she told Amanda recently while they planted new flowers together. Gardens are like families. On to Amanda. They need different kinds of plants to be healthy. And sometimes the most beautiful flowers grow in unexpected places. Looking at our Sunday gathering, I couldn't agree.